It's your boy, the one who's number one on everyone's watch list, Cornelia Lucifer. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh, right. It's been a while since I've streamed. FOMO kicked in. Oh, well, somehow got sick over the weekend like you wouldn't fucking believe, dude. Dude, it's like, fuck. Like, I go bowling with some friends who are completely healthy, mind you, and it's like, next thing you know, I fucking wake up sick as shit. Sick as shit on Saturday. Yeah. Sucks though. I had like a hike. Like, I wanted to like go for a hike with a friend of mine, good friend of mine, in like fucking Bowen on Wednesday, but I didn't know if I was gonna recover at that time, so that was fucking canceled until Monday. Fuck, but like, yeah, today we're gonna just gonna do a fucking art stream. I mean, that's gonna be interesting. Oh no, I mean, yeah, let's get this party started. Also, like, put some background noise, because it's like, I'm probably just gonna listen to some like stuff in the background. Fucking, there's one video by like Bedtime Stories, his spin-off channel, Wartime Stories. Like, fuck, like those guys are fucking goated.
Gunfire. The racks were stocked with everything from 18th century black powder muskets to some of the newest weapons on the market today. Needless to say, there was a lot of history in the place, and according to Jake, some of it was incredibly dark. Many of the weapons were salvaged and had been used in actual combat. World War I machine guns with clear signs of battle damage, German weapons with their original Third Reich factory marks, and several AKs that were brought over from Bosnia in the late 90s. There were even one or two antique bayonets with some ominous-looking stains that Jake said were definitely not dirt or oil. For Jake, getting hands on things that he'd only ever seen behind the glass in museum displays was incredibly cool. But he said there was also something undeniably eerie about being surrounded by items that witnessed so much bloodshed. It's very possible that men died still holding some of these weapons.
Fuck.
In all the stories I've read, there is a consistent pattern that indicates that spirits or souls of the dead, whatever they are, can and do sometimes attach themselves to things, people, locations, and in many cases, items. And what better
Fuck, I was
place
gonna
to
say
find
something, but I
many of these
completely
items
forgot.
gathered in one place than a museum? With so much bloody history under one roof, it's no
Wait,
surprise
he's
that
looking
many
at
of these
fucking.
buildings
Okay,
are
so
said to be filled with
if we look
strange
at the
happenings.
scene, he's looking at you before he's
These
saying
are
that.
just a few true
Well, he should be
stories
looking at
of strange
Yamato.
things in war museums.
Let me fix that. Yep.
I'm Luke Lamanna, and this is Wartime Stories. Pretty sure that's it. I didn't see anybody else back there.
Yeah, I'm dead for like 20 minutes. We are almost out.
Thank God. My feet are killing me.
That's what you get for giving a full tour to every family that walks in.
Dude, that kid would not stop asking questions. I swear, if one more person asks me if these are in War Thunder...
You should just start saying yes to everything.
Yeah, that Panther, premium unlock.
Where's that coming from?
What the hell was that?
Fuck. Okay. Fuck. How do I define the center
Inside.
of
No
Takashi's
way.
body in this?
Dude,
Shit.
None of those radios actually.
So, who wants to go check that out? These first few stories come from the Tales from the Grid Square project. In this first account, a A staff member of a tank museum describes his personal encounter with something that the building is apparently known for. He seems to have avoided naming the museum for the sake of his privacy.
Alright.
He writes,
Now to redo that fucking
I work
collar.
at a tank museum that exhibits all kinds of armored vehicles from World War I to Vietnam, all of which are fully operational. If you ask some of the older guys around here, the museum has its share of ghosts and other weird stuff. This is my story. On the day this went down, all the tanks on display were from the Second World War. The hatches on the vehicles were kept open in case any of the guests wanted to take a look at the tank's inner compartments. To set the stage for what happened, I'll mention that 8 of these tanks had their original working radios, and with their hatches open, you could always hear it clear as day if someone was talking from inside one of the vehicles. There was next to no sound dampening, and sound really carried in that place. The incidents occurred around 4:30 in the afternoon. There were no visitors in the museum, and the boss had already clocked out for the day. So it was just me and 2 other coworkers chilling in the front lobby, counting down the minutes before we closed shop. So we're there, having a normal conversation, when what can only be described as a radio starts coming from somewhere in the museum. We're all really confused, of course, but then we realized that a voice was speaking through the static. I can't remember all the specifics, but it was a man's voice asking something along the lines of when something was going to arrive and if anyone else was in the area. There was a brief pause before he asked the question 2 or 3 more times. Each time he repeated the question, this voice seemed to become more frantic. After about 7 or so seconds, the radio abruptly cut off and left us in silence. All 3 of us heard it, and we were all pretty unnerved. At first, we thought that it was a radio or PA system from a police car in the parking lot outside because it was so loud and clear. But when we went to go check, no cops were out there. We even pulled out our own supply of walkie-talkies that we used at an event the previous week, but all of those were switched off. As a side note, the museum doesn't have any sort of intercom system or anything really that could have produced a radio transmission like the one we heard. But the sound was so loud and could be heard throughout the entire museum. We started to think that it could have come from one of the tanks. It may not have come from any of the tanks at all, and I'm honestly not sure which is creepier. 5 o'clock could not have come sooner. We locked up all the doors, did our final checks, and prepared to call it a day, but as we went to arm the security systems, it gave us an alert telling us that the museum's back door was open. This was confusing as we never used the back door. There was no reason for it to be open, and we already confirmed that it was locked as part of our usual closing routine. Regardless, we head back there again to check it out and confirmed that it was, in fact, closed and locked. We then tried to set the security alarm again, and once again, it insisted that the back door, now along with a few other doors, were open. Could it have been a glitch with the security system? Maybe, but it had never done anything like this before. And at that moment, it didn't really matter to us. We were already creeped the hell out, so we collectively decided to just get the hell out of there. That was my first genuine paranormal experience that could actually be backed up by other witnesses. We often talked about it, and none of us could explain what happened. There were many items in that museum that were pulled off the corpses of dead men, going all the way back to
Now
World War
to
I,
fucking
to
make sure the
Vietnam,
hair doesn't
and
feel
other
off.
conflicts. Just recently, we also came into possession of a few items from the Mexican-American War in the 1800s. I later asked
So I actually have a
around
couple of fucking
some of the
videos
other
that I need to
staff who were
do.
working in the museum
Actually,
at the time.
like, I really need to get onto
They
working
seemed a
on
bit
that, but it's
apprehensive to
like,
talk about
honestly,
it,
but
they
it's
did
like right now I'm
disclose
just
that
working
a
on this.
poltergeist was said to inhabit the museum. I tried to get more information, but further talk about the subject was usually discouraged.
So, this is the armory. Bit of everything up here. Captured weapons, uniforms, pieces brought back over the years.
And this is where you've been having the most trouble?
Yeah. Most of it's just stories. But this one's different.
Yeah, I can feel that. It's heavier up here. These are officer swords.
Hmm? Oh, yes.
God.
Japanese. Second World War. Taken off Imperial officers. Anything?
Not clear yet. But something's here. Alright, give me a bit. I'll see what I can figure out.
How long do you need?
Half hour? Maybe less.
Right. I'll leave you to it then. Good luck.
How long can we stay away? Alright, now we're losing our feeling. How long before we all fade away? The fuck?
There you are.
What is going
You've been
on
here
here?
a long time, haven't you?
In case you're wondering why some museum workers are a bit apprehensive when it comes to disclosing the name of the workplace, it's not due to any lack of credibility. It's important to remember that war museums, especially those dedicated to specific regiments or units, are often places of education meant to honor the sacrifices of the men and women who served.
Yep.
The
I was always
last
wondering
thing
what it would be
these
like to
places
work in a
want are
museum.
hordes of people wandering the halls and exhibits.
It's like I
in
go
search
into the,
of
like,
ghosts. This next story was written by another anonymous staff member
I
of
was
the War
curious.
Museum, this one located
This,
in the
what
United
kind of
Kingdom.
knowledge would be there?
According to him, his employers keep stores.
Or I mean, like, I don't know. Like, honestly, I feel like if I wasn't going to pursue this, I'd probably consider the idea of, like, working in an archive center. Sure. Like, I look at the fucking... I look at... Like, I want to... Like, I would love to visit my local archive center just to see what it's like. Because, like, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of, like, working in a fucking archive center or, like, library or something. Because it kind of seems like it would seem like an interesting experience. It's like, I looked at my, like, local archive center to, like, see if there was, like, sort of, like, oh, musicians and shit, but I'm, like, I can't seem to find any. So, yeah, there is that, though. But, yeah, that's just my idea on alternate career paths.
Stories of the building's resident ghosts on the down low, but a recent experience he had on the job provoked him to want to reach out. He writes, "Keep me anonymous because I'll get absolutely rinsed for it by the bots if they found out. I work in a military museum in my spare time, and this place has a buttload of resident ghosts. Just this very day, I was working to get an exhibit set up when I noticed something strange. As I was heading to my office to grab some of the stuff I needed for the exhibit, I looked to my left at a locked glass, wholly airtight cabinet displaying a bunch of old photos. But for some reason, all the labels that were usually placed next to the photographs had been knocked over and put over the faces of the men featured in the pictures. This really creeped me out. But like I said, this place is no stranger to ghosts, most of which I'd say are pretty friendly. There are just two that you have to be careful of. The one in the library and the one in the attic. A lot of weird things have happened to people who've gotten on these ghosts' bad side. Like chairs being pulled out from underneath of them, heads being slammed on tables. The one in the library is known to slam doors shut if you really piss him off. But the one in the attic, which the museum uses as the armory, is said to be a real nasty piece of work. I can't remember all the stories about what he's done, but he's not known to be the friendliest of characters. Generally speaking, though, if you're respectful and leave these ghosts alone, they're completely harmless. The building that houses the museum is incredibly old. It was built in the year 1254 and is on the grounds of a cathedral that's probably been here just as long. The building's original job was to store the robes and all that of the old bishop, so there's already tons of history here. But our armory in Attic 3 is probably the coolest spot in the museum. You get loads of weapons from throughout history, captured enemy guns, swords, old uniforms, just tons of neat stuff. Our collection includes several Japanese officer swords captured during the Second World War. This leads us to our next story. So we've known about our particular angry resident up in Attic 3 for quite some time. A couple of years ago, we actually had a chap come in who was a psychic medium. He ended up talking with the museum assistant, Alice.
The shoulder felt too wide for that one.
These years and knows all about the ghosts. When the subject of the ghost in Attic 3 came
I don't know, this shoulder fell off to me.
Oh yes, I'll find out who this spirit is upstairs. So Alistair takes him up to the armory, shows him around, and asks, "How long will you be?" The medium chap replied, "Oh, about a half an hour." From there, Alistair leaves the armory to let the guy do his thing. About a half an hour later, he comes back to find this chap shouting utter shit at the wall, holding one of the samurai swords high above his head, as if he was about to slash something. I have no idea what happened next, but Alistair managed to take the sword from him and put it back in its display case before walking this medium chap out of the attic. As soon as they walked down the stairs, it was as if the medium came out of a trance. He just turned to Alistair and went, "What the hell happened in there?"
I was streaming for 17 minutes.
I got off my last deployment in 2015, and within a couple of weeks I had to run my annual physical fitness test. And up to that point, every year I'd gotten a perfect score. And then suddenly my run time dropped super hard, and that was the first time I felt like my body wasn't doing what it used to. And since then, it's just felt harder to stay lean, it's harder to keep energy, to bounce back. And so I started looking into it, and one thing that kept coming up was testosterone. Most guys don't realize levels naturally start dropping in your 30s, which can make it easier to gain fat and harder to keep muscle. That's what led me to Mars Men. If you want to check it out now, it's mengotomars.com. It's a natural supplement designed to support healthy testosterone levels with ingredients like tonkat ali, shilajit, zinc, and boron. There's no weird All right, let's get back to the stories.
Okay. How do I draw this gap between the body and the fucking arm so it doesn't feel awkward?
Mayday, mayday.
Fuck.
Ghost 2-1, taking heavy fire, Hydraulics are gone. I say again, hydraulics are gone. Controls are sluggish. We're losing RPM, engines cooling down.
Fuck, I need a reference image.
Negative on climb, we're not gonna make it out. Going down.
Here at Wartime Stories, we're no strangers to hearing about unusual experiences involving military aircraft. Along with natural history, dinosaur bones, and more, aviation museums have been one of my personal favorites to visit, whether it be the Naval Air Museum in Pensacola, Florida, or the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. There's something very awesome about seeing these massive aircraft displayed inside a building, whether parked on the floor or suspended from the ceiling. What I don't think I've been able to appreciate until more recently,
Fuck. What were the lyrics for that song?
Is that many of the aircraft have been used in active military service. It's not like the museum just...
Okay, kneel down and clear the stone of leaves.
They were given the ones that would be commissioned.
I felt the hate rise out in me. Kneel down and clear the stone of leaves. I wonder how hard you can see. Inside my shell I wait and bleed. I felt the hate rise out in me. Kneel down and clear the stone of leaves. I wonder how hard you can see. Inside my shell I wait and bleed.
You can actually see bullet patches all over her airframe. She was even shot down once in the crash.
Bye.
Managed to
Goodbye.
gearbox off the
Da
tail
da
fin.
da da
The
da
pilot
da
learned
da
his
da
incident
da
as Chief Warrant Officer
da.
2, Doug
Everything
Hatter.
is
He
3D
survived,
blasphemy.
but was later killed
Da
in
da da da
1986
da
when the
da
helicopter he was
da da
piloting
da
with National
da. This
Geographic
is not the way
photographers
I
aboard
picture me.
went down
I
during
can't
the
control
eruption
my
of Mount
shit.
St.
How
Helens
the
in
hell did I
Washington.
get here?
During
Everything
the war,
about
the
this
Huey
is
was
very
flying from
wrong.
the city of Bien
My
Hoa
hands are
to
ready
Vung
to
Tau
go
in
in the
South
air,
Vietnam
standing
when the
straight
damaged
up.
tail rotor broke away.
Isn't
It
all
had a
the
full
way
load of
I
cargo on
picture
board, and the
me?
heavy weight
I
actually
felt the
ended up
hate
being a
rise
blessing
out
in
in
disguise.
me.
Long
Kneel
story short,
down
Doug
and
managed to
clear
get the
the
helicopter to a
stone
practice
on
landing
me.
strip before attempting a crash
I
landing.
wonder
It
how
came down
hard
hard,
you
and the
can
impact actually
see
tore the entire
inside
tail
my
rotor
shell. I
away from the rest
wait
of the
and
aircraft. But
bleed.
everyone aboard was okay, if not a bit shaken up. The Huey was salvaged and sent back to Fort Worth, Texas to be rebuilt. When she came back to Vietnam, she served as a medevac helicopter, enjoying a long career until retirement. As for the haunting, I've heard all kinds of stories. People have heard voices in and around the aircraft, and the red collision beacon has been seen blinking, but there's no battery connected. Nothing in the Huey actually works, as there's absolutely no power in the airframe. Besides that, a few visitors have even come forward saying that some of the pictures they took of the helicopter show people that weren't there when the photo was taken. After 2 tours in Vietnam hauling dead and wounded men off the battlefield, I would expect nothing less. These old war machines all have souls. In a way, I think they remember their former lives in combat. All these rich folks and utility helicopter companies currently buying up old CH-47s and H-60s will probably find that a lot of those surplus helicopters are haunted as well. But instead of Vietnam-era ghosts, they'll likely be those from the global war on terror.
Cold today. All right.
What the fuck is going on here?
Is
Eh?
someone down here?
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just looking at this fucking video right now. Never
This
mind
final
then.
story was posted online a couple years ago. In it, a user by the name of NoMind9605 tells us all about the dark history of a 13th century Irish castle he works at as a tour guide. As you'll find out, the echoes of its dark past can still be felt to this very day. He writes, I've worked as a tour guide at a castle in Ireland for about 4 years. This place is chronically haunted. I myself was a skeptic before working here, and I've had a strange experience of my own, but I'll save that for the end. Before I talk about the ghosts, I'll tell you a bit about the history of the place. I won't mention the name of the castle, but you'll probably be able to figure it out. The castle dates back to the early 13th century and has been through 5 sieges in its lifetime. It features a dungeon in the southwestern tower with a jailer's folly and a staircase leading down to it, as well as what's called an oubliette. These were basically hidden prison cells that people were just dropped in and left to die. There's another one of these in the northwestern tower, which is the castle's most easily defendable point. There are also a number of burial pits left from the sieges, especially in the castle courtyard. They excavated one of these in the 1990s, but the sheer number of bodies meant that they couldn't be exhumed. Many of them are still there to this day. Before becoming a museum, the castle also served as a British military installation before being converted to social housing sometime in the early 1900s. The 17th century was the bloodiest in the castle's history, in which it was attacked 3 times. The first siege saw the city's civilians forced into the castle to survive, putting strain on the castle's provisions and led to both soldiers and civilians literally starving to death within the walls before the siege broke. There were also outbreaks of dysentery and a condition brought on by starvation known as the bloody flux. If you don't know what that is, let's just say It's not pretty. The second siege was even worse. The attacking troops refused parley to women and children, forcing them back into the city. Anyone caught trying to escape the siege by the invading forces were beheaded and had their heads erected on pikes outside each of the city's gates.
What the
As
hell?
well as across the riverbank facing the castle. In the last 2 months of this siege, there was an outbreak of plague on both sides, with the invading force then flinging dead plague victims over the city walls, increasing the plague count among the defenders and civilians. The third siege was the longest, lasting roughly a year and a half during a certain famous English War of Succession. During a large push by attacking Protestant forces, the drawbridge next to the castle was raised too early. Around 400 men were attempting to retreat back
This looks
into the city,
god-awful.
were trapped on the bridge.
No, fuck it. I'll just like put it, like I'll just like position Takashi in this panel where you can't see this shit in the in the fucking panel itself. Like nobody has to fucking know, dude.
Contemporary accounts from men who were on the castle walls and were no more than 10 meters from the bridge said it took hours for the screaming to stop. The river has to be dredged periodically in the modern day because of a hydroelectric dam built on the north of the country, changing its course slightly. Each time it's dredged, we turn up 17th century artifacts. In fact, cannonballs are some of the most common artifacts found in the city. Now, onto our ghosts. There are a lot of reports from employees, former residents, and barracks members of seeing gaunt, starving apparitions walking the towers or appearing in the windows. One in particular is of a man who appears in the Archer's Nest on the northwestern tower before walking through a corridor, which has been walled up since the 70s, toward that tower's oubliette. Within that tower's staircase are reports of hurried footsteps following you up the stairwell. I've had 2 security guards report this in the time that I've been here. More recently, an electrician who was just in the other week told me that he'd heard the exact same thing. Oddly enough, there's also a spirit in this tower who takes a particular dislike to Scottish people. They don't like Scottish guests, didn't like our Glasgow security guard, and really didn't like a Scottish ghost hunting TV program's crew members who were in last year. In the southern tower, there are stories of people.
Bruh, you don't know how much I
disembodied
want to fucking
screams,
run a train
cries,
through my
and
fucking
weeping that
OCs,
come up the
dude.
stairwell that leads to the dungeon.
It's like,
This stairwell
it's not
is
even
closed
fucking
to the
funny at
public
this
as it
point.
features a jailer's cell, which is about a meter drop in the middle of a staircase. The dungeon also periodically floods depending on the river tide. I've been down there at low tide.
Fuck,
The castle
bro.
gatehouse has a few spirits. One called the Big Fellow can be seen walking through the top 2 rooms, pacing back and forth. The Scottish
God.
Paranormal show that filmed here a little ways back apparently got some evidence of this guy. A spirit we often refer to as Monty can be heard jangling keys, and another dubbed the Smoking Man is said to have been an officer of the barracks during the 19th century who would sit under the arch of the gate and have his morning smoke. He apparently suffered an aneurysm and died standing in that spot. In Gaelga, we call it stork, which refers to an upright corpse. On misty mornings, people standing across the courtyard have reported an eerie amber glow coming from inside the gateway. One of our more tragic ghost stories is that of the Black Lady, who resides in the northeastern tower, which was a 17th century armory. When the Confederates stormed the castle in the first siege, they found a civilian woman hiding here. They violated her against the wall and murdered her right there in the room. There's a damp patch in this room right against the wall which has baffled stonemasons from 1753, 1991, 2013, and 2023. None of them can explain why that spot is constantly wet. The local legend says that if you hear singing in this room, good fortune will befall you. But should you hear weeping, it's a bad omen. They also found the skeletal remains of a pregnant woman just outside the entrance of this tower in the courtyard during the digs in the 90s. My own experience happened in the Undercroft Castle. The eastern wall no longer stands. Instead, there's a modern building preserving the archaeology underground, which, when touring the museum, you enter the castle grounds by walking underneath this building before emerging up and into the courtyard. My job is to be a performer and guide within the courtyard, which is why I'm tasked with opening and closing the towers, and have access to parts of the castle that are closed to the general public. It was about 8:30 to 8:45 a.m. when this happened. I had just turned on the AV, audio-video, in the museum and began making my way outside and down through the undercroft to the courtyard. While walking perpendicular through the remains of what was a corridor in the eastern wall, a gush of wind rushed through me, coming from my right side. My hair stood on end, and I swore I could hear what sounded like an exhale breath. I turned and looked to the right through the darkness in the direction of the tombs and saw nothing. I then spun and looked to the left through this corridor that leads to the southern wall. As I'm looking down the hall, I see this dark, wispy figure moving down the corridor. It had mass, and I could see that it blocked the light from the lamps in the corridor before rounding a corner and continuing down into a siege tunnel.
Dude, bedtime stories on
My
YouTube is
immediate
honestly the
reaction was
fucking
to laugh.
goat, dude.
I mean, what else could I do after seeing
The
something like
fucking
that?
goat.
But afterwards, I refused to go down there. It must have been 2 weeks before I finally found the courage to actually do the part of my job.
Actually reminds me, so I have like 2 fucking video uploads that I need to fucking work on. I need to fucking do the thumbnails for like both of them though. I really need to fucking do them. Like right after this fucking stream.
Wartime Stories is created and hosted by me.
That's it?
Lamana.
That's a fucking
Written
story?
by apparently got some evidence he, 19th century, who would sit under the arch of the gate and have his morning smoke. He apparently suffered an aneurysm and died standing in that spot. In Guelga, witnesses coming from the Black Lady, who at stamp patch 91, his good fortune so found the skeletal remains in the 90s. My own experience happened in the Undercroft Castle. The eastern wall no longer stands. Instead, there's a modern building preserving the archaeology underground, which, when touring the museum, you enter the castle grounds by walking underneath this building before emerging
Sorry,
up
just like,
and into the
sorry,
courtyard.
it's like,
My
I
job
just want to
is
make
be a
sure,
performer
like,
in
I just want to be
the
careful.
courtyard,
I just want to
which
like
is why I'm tasked with
listen to the
opening and
video right
closing
now
the
because like
towers
it feels
and
like
have
it cut
access
off,
to
getting
parts of
cut
the
off.
castle that are closed to the general public. It was about 8:30 to 8:45 a.m. when this happened. I had just turned on the AV, audio-video in the museum and began making my way outside and down through the undercroft to the courtyard. While walking perpendicular through the remains of what was a corridor in the eastern wall, a gush of wind rushed through me, coming from my right side. My hair stood on end, and I swore I could hear what sounded like an exhale breath. I turned and looked to the right through the darkness in the direction of the tombs and saw nothing. I then spun and looked to the left through this corridor that leads to the southern wall. As I'm looking down the hall, I see this dark, wispy figure moving down the corridor. It had mass, and I could see that it blocked the light from the lamps in the corridor before rounding a corner and continuing down into a siege tunnel. My immediate reaction was to laugh. I mean, what else could I do after seeing something like that? But afterwards, I refused to go down there. It must have been 2 weeks before I finally found the courage to actually do the part of my job that required me to go back into the undercroft.
Okay, so that was the end of the story.
Wartime Stories is created and hosted by me, Luke Lamana. Written by Jake Howard and myself. Audio editing, sound design, mixing, mastering, and production coordination by Alex Carpenter, with additional audio work by me. Animation and motion design by Hot Sauce Video. Research by Jake Howard and myself.
Oh fuck. Okay, I need to look to like what's next to the fucking background audio for like where I need to draw. Oh shit, one discovery is glimmering the thumbnail with the fucking hard eyes, chat. Closest thing to hell on earth. Fuck. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, fuck. Yeah, sorry, got a fucking Discord notification. Alright, Bloom Room video, let's go.
Welcome to Wix Harmony.
Fuck.
Even the boldest
I
creators
hate
rise on a
ads.
rock-solid foundation.
They are cancer. So how's everybody's evening in chat? So today, or well, I guess it could, I guess you could say tonight. I actually wound up going with going to sushi with some friends. So there's this like sushi restaurant that wound up like that's like shutting down in a week. It's all like, why not? Considering like the person, one of the two people I went with was supposed to go the hike with me, but they wound up canceling. No, sorry, they didn't cancel. I canceled the hike on Wednesday, like Bowen hike on Wednesday, because I was sick as shit and I was like, okay, why the fuck not? It's like, I'm gonna like, this is kind of like making up for some lost time with them. Like, fuck, I'm sorry, I have like 3 drinks in me. Like, okay, so I had like fucking plum wine there. I had like a cooler and a beer. So it's like, I'm kind of stumbling with my work. I'm a little stumbling with my words right now. Like, fuck, dude. But, anyways, where was I? Oh, yeah. It took us a while to get us a seat. Like, it was like 40 minutes, 40 minutes for us to, like, get a table and shit. Oh, fuck, this is the fucking top of the head. Look flat. Anyways, yeah. It was actually really nice. It's like, they were, like, really busy, so it took us, like, really, like, a long-ass while to fucking, and get, like, to, like, actually get our food. Like, we had to wait like 2 hours to like get everything ready. To like get everything. But I actually liked it. I didn't think it was that bad. I like the atmosphere of the place. It's like, damn, why didn't I visit this place earlier? Know what I'm saying? I really need to get back to my fucking Yakuza streams. That would be good. Fuck. I can't get the I can't get the shape of the eye right in comparison to the rest of the face. Fuck.
You make your grocery list, pay for your bucket list. Make so much more than money when you earn C+ points with Scotiabank Everyday Banking. Conditions apply. Learn more at scotiabank.com/banking packages. You're richer than you think.
You probably know Vistaprint for business cards, but did you know we print everything you need to brand your business? We print banners and signs that help you stand out, and must-have merch like tote bags, t-shirts, and hoodies. If you need it, we print it. Print it all with 20% off for new customers with code NEW20 at vistaprint.ca.
Dude, like I gotta use the bathroom. BRB. BRB. Alright, I'm back. I have some. Sorry. I was fucking video on Oatsy is probably good. It's pretty good. Alright. Billy Brown encounter.
Hi peeps, this is Rich from Bedtime Stories. Before we begin, we'd just like to give a quick mention to a channel called Weird World, who originally covered the case you're about to hear. From what we understand, the account itself was submitted by one of their viewers, and it's a particularly unsettling one. It was actually their coverage that first brought this story to our attention and inspired us to cover it ourselves. Weird World is a fantastic channel that delves into all kinds of obscure and lesser-known cases, many of which fly well under the radar. It's genuinely one of our favourites, and if you enjoy the kind of stories we tell here, there's a very good chance you'll enjoy what they do as well. We'll leave a link to their channel in the description below. Do go and show them some love. Now, with that said, let's begin. In late 2021, an ordinary man from the north of England reported 2 encounters that would alter the course of his life. The first took place in the early hours of the morning and left him questioning the nature of consciousness itself. The second occurred months later. Between these 2 events lay a period of illness so severe that doctors could not explain how he survived it at all. Whether these experiences were connected remains uncertain, but taken together, they form a deeply unsettling account of contact, consequence, and the possibility that some encounters are never meant to be remembered. In the autumn of 2021, life in the town of New Mills, Derbyshire moved at its usual pace. Nestled at the edge of the Peak District, the town sits amongst steep hills and narrow valleys, its streets winding upwards away from the centre into quieter residential areas. Union Road runs through one of these elevated stretches. The houses along it are older, many dating back to the late 19th century, built long before modern insulation or lighting was ever considered. They are solid structures, adapted over time rather than replaced, and many still retain the layout and character of their original design. One such house stood several stories tall, with a cellar below ground, living spaces at street level, bedrooms above, and an attic tucked beneath the roof. By 2021, the building had been divided into shared accommodation, At the very top, beneath the sloping ceiling, was a converted attic bedroom. A skylight was set directly above the bed, an older-style Velux window that opened outwards and offered an unobstructed view of the sky. When left open, it allowed in fresh air, distant sounds, and the occasional glow of passing cloud cover. This was where Billy Brown lived. Billy went to bed on the evening of Saturday the 9th of October at around 10 o'clock. Before settling down, he opened the skylight above his bed, pushing it wide so that it would remain open throughout the night. At some point during the early hours of Sunday morning, Billy was pulled abruptly out of sleep. He later estimated the time to be somewhere between 3 and 5 a.m. What awoke him was not a loud noise, but something far stranger. He described it as a sound resembling two budgerigars, nestled close together, quietly chattering back and forth. The moment Billy opened his eyes, the sound stopped. In the silence that followed, he became aware that he was not alone. Standing beside his bed was a figure he could not immediately reconcile with what he was seeing. His room was not completely dark. He estimated it was perhaps 60 to 70% in shadow, with enough ambient light filtering in from outside for him to make out shapes, depth, and detail. In that low light, he could clearly see the outline of a being approximately 4 feet in height. Billy would later describe it as resembling what is commonly referred to as a grey alien. The figure had a large elongated head that widened towards the top, a narrow chin, and deep-set black eyes that dominated its face. Its skin appeared rough, with visible lines that gave the impression of age rather than smoothness. This was not, in his words, a childlike or delicate figure. It looked old, worn. He could see it clearly enough to note these features without uncertainty. Despite the strangeness of the situation, Billy did not feel fear. Instead, he found himself half sitting up in bed, his legs straightened together in front of him, his back raised at roughly a 45-degree angle. The reaction felt instinctive rather than deliberate, as though his body had adjusted itself without conscious thought. Still not panicked, he extended his hand towards the figure and said, "Hello." In response, the being raised its own hand and placed it against his. The moment they touched, Billy felt an intense sensation of heat pass through his body. The sensation was not painful, but it was overwhelming, unlike anything he had experienced before. As the heat moved through him, Billy became aware that his feet were lifting from the bed. Although his upper body remained firmly seated, his legs rose upwards, lifting 5 or 6 inches into the air. He did not feel as though he was being pulled. There was no sensation of force acting upon him. His legs simply elevated, slowly and smoothly, as if responding to the energy passing through his body. At this point, Billy chose to break contact. He withdrew his hand from the being, and as soon as he did, his legs dropped back onto the bed. The heat sensation ceased immediately, and when he looked up again, the figure was gone. Billy looked around the room expecting to find some indication that something had occurred. The skylight remained open. The room was unchanged. There were no marks, no displaced objects, no sign that anyone or anything had been present. With no immediate explanation and no further disturbance, he eventually lay back down and fell asleep. At the time, however, Billy did not yet realize that this was only the beginning. By Sunday evening, Billy began to feel unwell. At first, it was difficult for him to describe exactly what was wrong. There was no single obvious symptom that explained the severity of his discomfort. Instead, he experienced a deep, spreading sense of physical distress centered around his head. The pain was intense enough that sleep became impossible. As the night wore on, it became clear that rest was no longer an option. Alongside the headache came a sudden inability to eat or drink. Even small amounts of water made him feel nauseous, and food was entirely out of the question. This was not accompanied by the kind of fever or flu-like symptoms that might suggest a common illness. His body simply seemed to reject intake altogether. As Monday passed into Tuesday, Billy remained awake. By this point, he had not slept for more than 48 hours. His condition continued to worsen. He began experiencing persistent sickness and diarrhea, until eventually there was nothing left for his body to expel. Despite this, the sensations did not subside. He described it as feeling as though his body was shutting down from the inside, a gradual internal failure rather than an external injury. Eventually, he called for an ambulance. Billy was taken to Stepping Hill Hospital in Greater Manchester, where medical staff immediately began a series of tests. Blood tests showed no obvious abnormalities. A CT scan revealed nothing that could explain his symptoms. One by one, potential diagnoses were ruled out, leaving doctors with no clear answer. As the tests continued to come back inconclusive, staff began discussing discharging him. Billy argued against this. He later recalled telling doctors that if they sent him home, he believed he would die. It was only after prolonged insistence that he disclosed what he had experienced days earlier, describing the encounter in his bedroom. The response was not what he expected. Rather than dismissing the account outright, the doctors asked for his permission to conduct an HIV test. When Billy asked why, he was told that standard blood tests only covered limited parameters, whereas an HIV test allowed for deeper analysis across a broader range of markers. Billy agreed, but the results remained inconclusive. With no diagnosis and no clear treatment pathway, Billy was discharged. He had no family or friends immediately available to collect him, so weak and still unwell, he made the journey home alone. From Stepping Hill Hospital, he walked to Hazel Grove train station, a journey he described as exhausting and disorientating. He then took the train to New Mills Newtown, followed by another walk of nearly a mile back to his house. By the time he reached home, he was barely able to function. For the next 3 days, Billy did not leave his room. By Saturday night, his condition reached a critical point. He began coughing up blood. He had still not slept, now approaching a full week without rest, and he remained unable to eat or drink. He later described this period as feeling close to death, not in a dramatic sense, but in a quiet, physical certainty that his body was simply failing. It was only by chance that help arrived. A friend who also lived in the shared house entered Billy's room to retrieve a phone charger. Instead, he found Billy in a state that immediately alarmed him. Billy was unable to call for help himself, so an ambulance was called on his behalf. When East Midlands Ambulance Service arrived, the paramedics first asked to examine Billy's back. He was not immediately told why. After a brief conversation outside the room, they returned, placed him onto a stretcher, and carried him to the ambulance. Upon arrival back at Stepping Hill Hospital, the tone suddenly changed. Billy asked if everything was going to be all right.
Fuck, is the thumb
One of
wide
the
enough?
paramedics responded plainly that he had blood poisoning, and would be taken directly to intensive care. He was admitted to the ICU, where doctors explained that it was the highest dependency ward available and the safest place for him given his condition. Throughout his hospitalization, doctors attempted to identify the source of the blood poisoning. They asked repeatedly whether Billy had any cuts, wounds, or points of infection. None could be found. There was no clear entry point, no injury that explained how the infection had begun. Billy remained in hospital until around the 18th of November. His stay included 2 weeks in intensive care, followed by 2 weeks in a high dependency ward, and then time spent on a general ward. After leaving hospital, his physical strength gradually returned, but not in any consistent pattern. Some days he was able to move around the house with relative ease. On others, even simple tasks left him exhausted. The fatigue felt deeper than ordinary tiredness, arriving without warning and lingering long after he had rested. Sleep, when it came, was fractured. Rather than falling into a natural rhythm, Billy described drifting in and out of consciousness. Dreams were vivid but difficult to recall, leaving behind only a vague sense of unease. He did not experience nightmares as such, but waking often brought the feeling that rest had not fully restored him. Billy found himself questioning whether the encounter and the illness were connected. Doctors had been unable to identify the source of his blood poisoning. No injury or point of infection had been found. The absence of an explanation did not confirm a link, but it left room for doubt. The timing felt uncomfortably close. Throughout November and into December, Billy gradually resumed everyday routines. He began driving again, made short trips outside, and prepared to return to work in the new year. Outwardly, life appeared to be settling back into place. Inwardly, something had shifted. There was no sense of panic or fear, no belief that he was being watched or followed. What remained was quieter than that, a feeling that the boundary between ordinary life and something unfamiliar had briefly thinned, and that its effects had not entirely passed. By mid-December, Billy felt well enough to travel. Still recovering and with time on his hands, he planned a short evening drive to visit his cousin in Huncote, Lancashire. It was meant to be unremarkable, a routine journey, a return to normality. He certainly did not expect anything else to happen. On the evening of Monday the 19th of December 2021, Billy left his cousin's home in Huncote shortly before 8 o'clock. Still recovering from his illness and not yet back at work, the drive home to Derbyshire was meant to be routine. It was a route he knew well, one he had taken many times before. He set off at around 7:45 p.m. in his dark green Volkswagen Golf, stopping briefly at a petrol station near the top of Huncote before joining the A56 towards Manchester. Traffic was light and the roads were quiet. He passed through Haslingden and began climbing out of the valley via the slip road from Rawtenstall. Beyond Ramsbottom, the road transitioned onto the M66.
Okay, you know
Several miles
Okay, you know what? This probably isn't working out right now. I am probably just gonna call it a night. I have 2 videos out. Those out soon. Be on the look for that. I need to fucking get rid of the VODs from. Not get rid of. Upload the rest of the videos of of my last stream as well. I'll just take care of this behind the camera, behind the scenes and shit.